everyone. Welcome to our next episode of Spotlight on CS Ops. Sorry. Today we have with us Pedro Candelas. Pedro has been someone who's been a practitioner for many years in the field. I had the opportunity to work with him when I was at ValueWise, and so I really want to showcase his journey here today. Welcome, Pedro. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Pedro, welcome. I know you and I hadn't met prior to this interview, so it's so great to meet you. Uh, Tell us a little bit about how you got here. Like, what brought you to this spot? What trajectory did you take to enter and arrive into CS Ops?
Yeah, so I'm a like an industrial engineer. So kind of very involved already in like ops on the ops side. I come from the manufacturing side of business, and I spent a lot of time in the aerospace industry. So I was very involved in operations, more like in the real world than in tech. So working
Yeah,
with
tech
like
is not the real world, right?
I mean like the virtual world.
Yeah,
So I was working with like designing processes and operations of like manufacturing operations. And then a few, like I'll say almost 10 years now, I got the opportunity to move into tech. Uh, and then I noticed that there's also operations in the tech side. So I was working as ops manager for a tech company in Mexico, where I'm originally from. And yeah, that's how I realized that like operations is also applicable to tech. And then getting involved with new products and new companies, and then moved to Canada. I landed in a CS role, and that kind of like I saw the opportunity of, oh, CS also needs operations, and I know
yeah,
all this. I have all this background related to operations, and I all have all this background related to customer success, support, service. Uh, that I think there's an opportunity here to like expand into this role. And then I noticed that there was this role called CX Ops, and that's basically how I ended up there. It
yeah.
was sort of random, sort of like kind of like destiny pushed me to it. But yeah, that's kind of the path I followed.
I think our journeys are always random and yet never random
Yeah,
somehow.
yeah, yeah. I
I'm
think
curious. I talked to somebody not too long ago who was in uh, transportation operations, and they wanted to make the jump over to CS operations. So, what did you find that was like similar between called the real world ops and CS ops, and what's different?
I think at least as an industrial engineer, you see everything as a process, and that's where I think I find the connection. Like, it doesn't matter if it's making like building a plane or designing transportation routes or designing a software SaaS product. Like the process itself, like designing the process is basically the same. It's just a product that is different, but you find the same challenges while you're um, designing those processes, because we're all humans, and even though we're designing automated products, like humans are still building these products. So you find the same challenges, you find the same opportunities, and that's I think that's like the way you can see where there's like that connection between the real world and the virtual world.
Yeah, I love
There's
that. I absolutely
It's
love that. Seeing
interesting.
this process.
Your some of the things that you've done, like in in the field, and I've seen you speak at other with other folks in the space, is really around like process engineering. Uh, I guess like when you grew up in the industry or manufacturing, you probably would have picked up things like Six Sigma and figuring out how to drive like process process efficiencies and getting rid of waste. Like, have you found like you've been able to kind of take some of those concepts and basically directly apply to like customer journey mapping or you said like
Yeah,
workflow building and yeah.
absolutely. Like lean management, and that's something that I kind of like to talk about. It's very connected to like process improvement and understanding and finding opportunities to eliminate waste in processes. That's something that is kind of very like similar to what you have in the real world, in the real, like in manufacturing industries. And there's a direct connection between, like, for instance, a value stream mapping, which is a process where you identify the flow of like how you're manufacturing a product with like a customer journey or a customer journey mapping. It's the I'll say the process that of creating that map, it's very similar at the end of the day. So I think those skills are very transferable. Like those skills from lean management, from process improvement, Six Sigma, they help you with a CS ops role as well.
Of the things, like, I'm not as familiar with Six Sigma or some of those, especially from that space. But were there any you found particularly applicable? And I'm thinking about people watching this who are like, "Huh, I could augment myself by going deep on that skill or looking at that certification, maybe even or something." So, were any that stood out to you as like especially helpful?
Yeah, I'll say like there's some green belt certifications to understand like lean management and value stream mapping, and I think that gives you a very good idea of where can you have efficiencies in your processes, and that's something that is like important to understand where you can gain efficiencies, because it's sometimes it's about gaining efficiency in the process, sometimes it's gaining efficiency with resources, how to allocate resources in a better way, creating like allocation matrices, even working with like customer success segmentation and assigning customers CSMs to those segments. That knowledge helps you to build all those processes together with and then sometimes it's too, I'll say, statistical if you go deep into Six Sigma by understanding root cause analysis, which is a tiny portion of Six Sigma. That also helps you to understand like when you have customer complaints and how you address these customer complaints, and creating Pareto charts so you can understand which defects or which problems are affecting your customers, and not just like running around trying to fight all the fires, instead of like putting together something that you can actually work and is meaningful to everyone, and not just fighting fires. Yeah.
Super cool. This is really getting into like the science of process management and the CSO. So super interesting stuff. Like, is there anything going back into kind of your beginning? And yeah, you grew up in Mexico. Did you learn this? Did you go to university to learn industrial engineering, or was it something that you learned on the job, or how did
No,
you get into?
I'm an industrial engineer. Like my degree is industrial engineering, and then I work in the industry for a long time. So something that portions of it, so lean management and Six Sigma can be learned with courses, but industrial engineering already includes all that, plus other stuff that are not necessarily applicable to tech, like environment and health, and other like machine operation and all that stuff that is really not applicable to tech, but a lot of things are applicable to tech.
Does seem like knowing that. I mean, I don't know anything about machine operation, I tell you that, but knowing it develops a mindset that puts you in this process mode, this troubleshooting mode of, okay, how do I get a team, how to get people from A to B? Or how do I reach out to that? So I love that background. I love that background a lot.
And something that I always say, and even like my wife makes fun of me, that like I'm always trying to process improve, because I go to the market and I see everything as a system, and if something is not producing the output that you're expecting, there's something wrong with the process. And that's something that I always tell, especially now that I'm doing consulting. Like I always tell the people, like, it's usually not the people, it's the process. So take a look at the process and understand the system that is creating that error, and then tackle what is creating that error and gain efficiencies in that. And I guess that's part of what the industrial engineering taught me, is like seeing the world as a collection of systems, if you want to say that they all connect at the end of the day, but like it's a collection of systems.
All right. So give us your number one thing in the grocery store that could be improved by processes.
Checkout service.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Yes.
Yeah, check out. Like I always complain about checkout service when I like why is it like this? Like there's so many things that can be done to improve the experience. But yeah, like I don't have like there's a little store down the road that I hated the checkout because it was self checkout, but the store was
Okay.
so small that they didn't need to have self checkout. So like
Uh,
it was just like there was always someone coming at the end to help you because the self checkout was so impossible to do. So like yeah, like just get rid of the self checkout and have someone helping you instead of like there's problems in the system that are affecting the output.
yeah. Or a solution in
Yeah,
search of a problem or
yeah,
something.
yeah,
Yeah. That's interesting.
yeah.
So what are you doing now then? Like tell us a little bit about like what are you up to nowadays? You were previously working at CSOps, but now you're working as a consultant?
Yeah, so my journey has taken me through customer success director, well, CO, so customer operations, then customer success director, managing a team, and then CX ops in two different companies, and now I'm doing a strategy consulting, customer success strategy consulting, which is a mix of a lot. So operations and like strategy and design and many other aspects than just operations, but including operations.
Now, tell us what it means when you put the strategic lens on customer success operations. I think sometimes in CS ops, we're the administrators, I don't know, we just make the machine work like it's supposed to. So when you say strategic, I'm curious what you're going for there and what you would recommend to folks listening of like how to be more strategic.
Well, it's like the vision. Most of the times as ops people, we think that like just delivering what we're asked for is what they need. And I've been guilty of that in my previous roles. It's like ops, and then like figure out this, but you have to also start thinking in the long run. And as I said in describing how the world works, at least according to me, is like it's a collection of systems. So how this system, how we're improving this system, is gonna impact or how it's connected to the other systems that are connected to the process I'm working with. So if you improve the onboarding process, how is that going to impact resourcing? How is it going to impact HR? How is it going to impact all the other areas than just let's improve the customer journey? It's more than just the one portion of CS ops, but seeing that vision is I guess is what a strategic means.
Super interesting. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, this has been like super enlightening. Is there anything that like Pedro, as you look back into your career, like is it, when you were on that sitting at the cliff edge thinking like I'm gonna jump into technology at one point and you're thinking like I'm gonna perhaps jump into CS or CSOps or customer operations. Is there anything that you would tell yourself or that you would wish you had known when you started back then? Like that, you'd love your younger self to maybe you would have been able to maybe make a better decision or just
Uh,
a better practitioner?
I guess maybe learning because I used to manage data because from the industrial engineering part where like you manage like quality control analysis, you get tons of data. But we use Excel spreadsheets, and I think if I was able to go back in time and learn a new skill before jumping into CSOps, I would say data analytics, like learning SQL and all those tools for data mining. I think that's something that I will learn. Like I'm still kind of learning, and I understand it and I know how it works. but I'm not really producing the data that I want to. I'm just relying on someone to put it together. So I think that's something that I would like to, if I could go back in time and learn something, I will be that. And then the other thing is like before moving into tech, I thought I needed to know how to code. So I was a little bit like cautious when I moved into tech. But yeah, you don't need to. You don't even know how to code.
That's got to
I
be
joke
like
that
the.
I've never written a line of code in my life, and
Yeah.
I'm really thankful for the people that do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you on that, Pedro.
That's got to be like the number one question I always hear. Like when I tell people I'm in tech, like if they're not in tech, that's the immediate question they ask. Like, oh, do you code? Like, no,
Yeah.
I don't do any of it.
Yeah,
That's
I was.
right.
Yeah, I say the same. Like, I'm in tech, but I'm not in the tech side. Yeah.
Very
It's
cool.
amazing how many options there are inside of tech that don't require coding. Like there's so many areas that we're going, and I think that our space is growing. I mean,
Yeah.
just think about CS ops, strategic CS ops, like all those things almost didn't exist.
Yeah.
Let's say 10 or 15 years ago, and now it's a whole subset, it's a whole industry, with I think more to come. So
Yeah,
yeah,
you're
don't
right.
let no code scare you off.
Exactly. I think like no code should scare you off, and there's a lot of opportunities. I think, especially in the upside, and then kind of like what you were saying before. There's a lot of like when they ask me as well, what do you do? And like I work in tech, and it's like you code, and it's like ops, and they're like what? Like there's that it is that field exists in tech as well, and they people get surprised by like this when I describe what I do because it's completely not related to tech. Although it's related to tech, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Pedro. I know it was super last minute, but really appreciate you coming to share your journey with us here today. So thank you for all the insights and for sharing.
Yeah, no, thanks for inviting me. I'm happy
Thanks,
to
Pedro.
participate.